Hello, this is me, Ellie, Looks from the Crypt, and today we are going to be discussing Lucifer Valentine's very elusive Vomit Gore trilogy. If you want to see how I got this look and hear my thoughts on the infamous trilogy, keep on watching. So with these moves, I'm just going to start out by saying, if you do not like vomit, gore, water sports, anything graphic, these are not the movies for you. I don't know what else you would gather from a title like the Vomit Gore trilogy, but just in case, these are not for you if that is not what you like or care to see whatsoever. You may have heard of these movies from the disturbing movies Iceberg that was going around forever ago. It feels like forever ago, but it was only a couple months ago on like Reddit and TikTok, YouTube. The Vomit Gore trilogy, they all came in at tier 3 of the disturbing movies Iceberg. If you want to hear more about that, Wendigoon, he made like a really great like in-depth video of every single movie on each tier of the Iceberg. I was shockingly introduced to these movies initially via Netflix about 10 years ago when that website was just like the Wild West. I believe they had the full trilogy, but I only watched the first entry being Slaughtered Vomit Dolls. At the same time, Netflix had like August Underground, like Philosophy of a Knife, along with a bunch of other like extreme cinema, along with like shockumentaries with like real death and stuff like that, which is really funny just because I feel like they would never today even like consider having something like that on their platform. I'm just gonna start out by saying also like none of these movies have like clear linear storylines or plots whatsoever. Myself and many other viewers would agree. To have an understanding, even like a basic understanding of what these movies are about, you'd have to read like the back of the DVD or like a synopsis to even gather that. They are not presented in a start to finish kind of way like a traditional movie would be. Without being guided through with like a synopsis or anything like that, you will have zero understanding of what you had just watched. The first entry of the Vomit Gore trilogy is Slaughtered Vomit Dolls, which is where we are introduced to our main protagonist throughout the whole series, Angela, who has just lived a very traumatic and tortured life. Angela is a bulimic sex worker who had made a pact with Satan, and that's kind of just what we're following here. And through this pact with Satan that she has, we descend with her into her own nightmarish hallucinations and depravity. Slaughtered Vomit Dolls feels like a suicide note to the world from Angela, to the world that wronged her, and just to show how depraved and shitty one person's existence can truly be. And we end with her ending her own life in the bathtub by drowning herself. We hear sirens surrounding her as the movie comes to a close, which is where we find out that this also took place on the same day that Kurt Cobain took his own life. Regurgitated Sacrifice, the second entry of our films, picks up right where Slaughtered Vomit Dolls ended with Angela dead in the bathtub. And then this movie is about us being took with Angela through the in-between, if you will, kind of like Catholicism's purgatory as she descends into full brain death. And if I'm being honest, this one is a lot of the same shit. I guess I didn't really get into it with the Slaughtered Vomit Dolls, but lots of puke, lots of gore, and lots of just general debauchery. This entry in Regurgitated Sacrifice, we do focus and play a lot around with the idea of life, death, and rebirth, and how, kind of one door opens, one door closes. And she is brought through this journey with the Soska sisters, which is really interesting because they're uncredited in this movie and you cannot find anything about it that they're in it, but it's certainly them. And you know them from other horror films, like American Mary is most noteworthy here. And then we also end with, to play more on the idea of the rebirth and life, death, cycle bullshit. we also end with shots of Angela's suicide along with somebody else who is taking their life in the same fashion as she did. And once again, like I said, this movie is kind of a lot of the same bullshit, just amazing gore effects with vomiting. Honestly, they toned down the vomiting in this one, but with the recent addition of water sports, if you do not know what that means, I am sorry, I don't know how you ended up. And Slow Torture Puke Chamber is the final entry in the series. It is supposed to be about Angela. Her pact with the devil isn't complete. She is sent back to Earth, to the surface, to find, another soul to prey upon, another person whose depraved existence this is. What I believe, though, is through all of this is that every person we see and is living the same depraved experience is like almost like an extension of Angela. There are 2 other movies connected to this trilogy, called like Black Mass of the Nazi Sex Wizard and the Angela chapters, which came out in quite a while after the first 3. The Slaughter Vomit Dolls came out in 2006 for reference. The Angela chapters came out in like 2020. But like I said, it is called a trilogy for a reason, so we won't be getting into those today. However, the thing for me that sets the third film apart from the rest is there is parts where the actresses are, it almost feels real what they're recounting, but they're talking about, their traumas throughout life and how shitty it's been and everything they've gone through from the beginning of being, abused as children and then going through the cycle of, coming to sex work for survival and things like that. And it feels very real and it's very powerful in terms of everything else that's going on. Most memorable moment for me during Slaughter Vomit Dolls was there is a scene of a woman just generally being like, it's not Angela, it's like one of her friends or something, I don't fucking know, being mutilated and degraded. She gets her like arm like chopped off after like, all this shit happening, and they hand her like a guitar and like a microphone like she's supposed to like play, but obviously she can't, and I would be lying if I didn't like laugh my fucking ass off during this. And it was like a sign of relief. It was like almost like a palate cleanser for like just a moment in time seeing that. A standout moment from Regurgitated Sacrifice for me is, well, okay, the thing about these movies is you kind of just sit there and watch them in awe of the effects and just like the crazy shit you're seeing before your own eyes, because personally I don't think I've ever seen fucking anything like that in cinema, and that's kind of why these do something for me to some degree. But there is a scene of a woman, she is basically being like scalped and all this horrific shit. She's scalped, they like scoop out her brains basically, more or less, and then they have her like, there's like a fucking octopus out of nowhere and they like make her wear like the octopus hat, and then this dude starts wearing like the fucking like gory octopus hat. I say it's a hat, but no, it's just a fucking octopus that they're using as a hat. And then he's like starts like ripping out her like organs and everything, and like starts like slapping her with them. Once again, a moment to like kind of chuckle at its like absurdity for me and all of the mess of everything else. Another standout moment for Regurgitated Sacrifice for me is, honestly, I'm sorry if this is actually a Slow Torture Puke Chamber. They kind of ran together because I watched them all in very close amount of time with one another, but just because they are very short movies, they only come in at like an hour or so each. But there is a scene where there is a tarantula walking around, which is real. The tarantula itself is real, yes. And then it cuts to a shot of like the tarantula is like, this is prosthetics, this is 100% fake. There is the making of on the DVD. I watched it. Where you see like the tarantula's like legs, prosthetics, are like coming out of the Angela's downstairs region, and then you watch it get sewed up. Applaud that because it actually looks fucking amazing, and you're like, have one of those like, wait a fucking goddamn moments when you're like watching it. So for me, the one kind of standout moment, which I don't know if this is more about me or the movie itself, if this was my standout moment, but in Regurgitated, or wait, no, Slow Torture Puke Chamber. I'm sorry, I keep mixing up the titles. The standout moment for me in that one was there is a scene of Angela like fucking herself with a cross in a bathtub. That's pretty cool. I like the like blasphemous vibe, but and then there's also a scene where I was so horrified while watching it, which says a lot considering the rest of the shit I fucking seen. But she is nude, and she's kind of like putting herself, you know, like upside down, legs against the wall, you know, ankles near her head, and I'm like, oh no, you know what I mean? And then she starts like pissing in her own mouth. Yeah, I can say I've never seen that before, so that gets an extra point for me for showing me something I've never seen in my entire life. My name is Johnny Knoxville, and welcome to Jackass as I trim the eyelashes that are already on my eyes. Okay, and we are back with our finished look here. I did a very pinky, like, I know it's not like Valentine's Day anymore, but we are still in February, and the red hair kind of makes me want to go for like these really soft kind of looks like this now. Anyways, so like I said earlier, you will not gather these plots from watching the films alone. I would honestly compare these movies to being like kind of like almost like a video collage of watching somebody's like special effects portfolio, which in its own right is kind of fucking awesome. This is a collection of nightmarishly chopped together scenes of vomit, gore, and water sports. Oh, fun fact, all the vomit is real. Which you get the sense of while watching that it's real. I would say these like films are sort of almost like an exploration of fetish and gore with no present storyline. This, along with the other like extreme films of its time, like August Underground or Girl Hell 1999. The point is to push limits and make you feel uncomfortable. It's almost like an endurance test for the viewer to see how much they can take if they aren't turned on by it. These movies, their purpose is to push boundaries, and you know what? That's what they fucking did. I've never seen a movie like these in my entire life, and that's why, in their own right, they're cool to me and kind of important. I would say, you know, I'm not gonna fucking watch these again and again. I will hold on to them as a collection piece, especially considering I scored them for super cheap like a couple years ago. So what I would rate each one, I would say Slaughter Vomit Dolls is probably the best one, if I'm being honest. It's I kind of rate them the same all across the board, but I would say that's like a 2 or 2.5 out of 5, which I know that probably seems really generous considering what I said, but it's an assault to the senses. It's super incoherent yet visceral and effective. I personally, once again, I love the gore. I've never seen gore like this in a movie, and to me, the gore is so awesome and over the top. I wish, I don't know, as like a, I don't want to say I'm like a horror purist, but to a degree, like I kind of like hate like the insane amount of CGI and shit like that, and this brings it for me. Like, for example, like I feel like so many movies would be so fucking awesome if they had gore like this, as opposed to like, you know, CGI blood and like bullshit. Number 2, Regurgitated Sacrifice. I'm gonna have to give this one a 2 out of 5, maybe 2.25. I don't know. With it has the nightmarish sound design and cringe-inducing imagery like the first one. And then for number 3, Slow Torture Puke Chamber. If I'm being honest, I'll just get straight to the point. Not that the first two, Slaughter Vomit Dolls and Regurgitated Sacrifice, are like fucking Oscar-winning, like amazing films, but Slow Torture Puke Chamber, for me, my impression watching these as somebody who can appreciate a movie for what it is, even if it's not my thing, I think Slow Torture Puke Chamber was just porn, if I'm being honest. We don't even get gore until like the last 30 minutes, which once again, it's fucking amazing once we get it. We watch, like, you know, a pregnant woman be cut open and they take her baby and fucking put it in a blender and all this crazy shit, which is so awesome when you're watching it. But, like, it still felt like very little payoff for watching nearly an hour of just, like, porn, of, like, vomit porn, women fucking pissing themselves. I'm gonna have to say the third is probably my least favorite out of the three. I'll probably still give it, like, a, let's say, like, a 1.75 to 2 out of 5. However, at the end of the day, if I'm being completely honest, I don't necessarily hate these movies, no. Do I think they're good? No. Do I recommend them? Absolutely not. As a horror film, there are lots of movies I absolutely recommend saying, yeah, go fucking watch that, even if I do think it's not going to be a lot of people's things or, like, push their limits. But this is kind of like a different story. It's extreme cinema. It's really hard to get behind. There's no storyline, and it's very, I guess it's all in the title, extreme, with just the graphic nature of everything that's presented to us. These are movies that you watch for the experience. I would say, yeah, I didn't watch a movie. I fucking went through an experience watching these, which I can appreciate. However, let's get to my major qualm with the Vomit Gore trilogy is I really do love the way these are shot. It's super visceral in every way imaginable. I love the gore. The gore is super impressive, especially considering like, the kind of budget we were running on, kind of thing. Like I said, you don't see gore like this anymore, and I love it. I love the practical effects. I love the real vomit. However, I wish I could see this like brought forth in a traditional sense, like a movie. You know what I mean? Like with a clear-cut storyline, even if it's the same fucking thing, I'd be much more impressed. These would get, like, fucking 5s from me if that's what we got. And, like, I love how dirty they feel, and, like, the atmosphere that Lucifer Valentine had created, yet, it still gets all lost without a coherent storyline for me. Or even if, like, okay, each movie runs from 60 to 75 minutes. If we cut them down to be, like, true short films of, like, half an hour or so, I could get behind it a little bit more. Trilogy would be really awesome if we had, like, a digestible, no pun intended, linear, coherent storyline, but that's just not what we're given. I know that's not the point, but that's just what I would like to see from my point of view and taste. Unlike others, I have always had like this strong curiosity, whether it be morbid, towards the darker corners of everything. And it just happens to be that movies are one of my favorite things, especially horror movies. It's like almost like my fixation, you know what I mean? So I feel like if you are into extreme cinema or like just want to say you watched something to say you fucking watched it, these are a set of movies for you. Films do have like a great divide because there are people who think that it's just absolute fucking trash, with no purpose, and it's disgusting, like fuck this shit, and then people who think it's like a true like art house like experience. I don't feel either way. I feel somewhere in between where I'm like, I can appreciate it for what it is, what's brought forth. It's not necessarily for me, but it does have some value for how great the effects are. And as we come to a close, I feel the need to pay respect where respect is due and say rest in peace to Amira LeVay. She is our lead actress throughout the entire trilogy. She was tragically murdered in 2017. And I just want to say you're the one and only woman I've ever seen piss in her own mouth, and I must pay respect for that. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I just want to say like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends who like fucked up movies as well. Let me know, do you remember back in the day when Netflix was the Wild West like that? Do you plan on watching these movies? Do you want to watch them? Have you ever heard of them? Or are you planning on staying clear the fuck away from them? Which are all valid responses from hearing what you had just heard. Let me know what's the most fucked up movie you've seen. This is Looks from the Crypt, Ellie, and thank you so much for watching, and I am out.
I don't know what's left of me, but you can fucking ignore.